Famcast Media, bitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, persons of all ages, welcome to the most exclusive group in the wrestling community. And now, your hosts, first, from Omaha, Puerto Rico, Macho Rodriguez, and his tag team partner from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, God's gift, Tyler.
What's going on, people? How's everybody doing today?
Going on?
All right, there you go. The gift. I like it. I like it. Well, guys.
Some people stole my gimmick, so.
Well, that's actually what I was going to touch on to begin with. I was actually going to point that out. We were going to use our gimmick names on here from now on, guys, but it seems to me that, unfortunately, Tyler's gimmick name was actually stolen by the one and only Maxwell Jacob Friedman. So we saw that there's actually a shirt produced with his name on. So we're just going to go the gift. That's fine. We're going to leave God's gift in the intro, though, because that just seems a little it just seems
they sue us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully we don't get sued. But everybody, welcome to part 2 of Wrestler Spotlight for the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. And we are super excited for this one because, to be quite honest, this is one of the few things we agree on. This man right here, quite possibly, could be the greatest of all time. There's a lot of people that are brought up in this category, but we don't really know how much, other people can lay that claim. Shawn Michaels has just had 2 Hall of Fame careers in one. There's in other sports, only one other guy has done something like that, being Michael Jordan, which is why I make that reference all the time, that he is the Michael Jordan of wrestling. But Tyler, before we jump into the second half of his career, is there anything that you wanted to talk about about Shawn Michaels?
I mean, I think his work speaks for himself. And the second half of the career, as you've said before, I think is even better than the first. Like, we've got so much to talk about today. I think we're probably going to just roll right through.
Yeah, absolutely.
We won't even have an intermission or anything because we have so much to talk about.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to roll with the intermission this week. There's no need for that because we're going to touch on matches. We're probably going to ask each other trivia questions. We're going to do all of that type of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Shawn's not really a promo guy, so we're not really missing anything there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, he does have that Montreal promo, and he does have the inception of the D-Generation X. But we touched on that last week. But if we're getting started, what?
He didn't sleep with that young intern. He was up all night.
Well, that was actually Triple H that said that.
No, that was Shawn.
Was it? Oh,
I was up all night is Shawn. He's done it a couple times.
Oh, okay. Well, I
was up all night.
Oh, there you go. All right, well, so we start his second half of his career right in 2002. And obviously we know that on June 3rd, 2002, on an episode of Monday Night Raw, after 18 months of not being on television at all, Big Sexy Kevin Nash decides to announce Shawn Michaels as the new member of the NWO. Now, this was a blip in his career. The WWE made a very minimal attempt at trying to bring back some of the magic that NWO had in WCW. And they tried to add people like Booker T, The Big Show, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, but it just didn't work. It wasn't a great thing. It was terrible. It was one of those really bad things. They could have done a better job of it, but I don't know. It's just kind of one of those moments in Shawn Michaels' career where I kind of like to forget, although he does look pretty sick in the little Kango hat and shirt. He did look pretty cool though.
Yeah, but and I mean it got him back on TV, and then that's what led to, the second career. So
yeah.
We thank him for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we move on from there to where they decide that the NWO is just trash. That's essentially what they tell us. And they decide to reform D-Generation X. So they go out to the ring and they have a massive – Tyler, I don't know if you've studied, if you've like looked up any of this stuff before we started going into part 2. But when they did this like redoing the D-Generation X, right, and Triple H turns on Shawn Michaels, I remember the massive high and low from it.
For sure. So you know what actually was supposed to happen? It was the reason they ended the NWO angle was Kevin Nash tore his quad.
Mm-hmm. He probably tore his quad just watching this podcast.
Yeah, I believe it was actually walking to the ring. So, you know.
Kevin, in case you are watching, sir.
Anyway, yeah, so he tore his quad and Shawn went to the airport the next day and he was sitting there thinking, he was like, I wonder. He's like, he calls Vince and he's like, what if I come back for one more match and it's a street fight, me versus you? You're the boss who's run everyone into the ground, including me. You ended my career because I can't work anymore. Mm-hmm. But for one night only, I'm back in a street fight. And so Vince thought about it and he said, well, if you could work with me, I'm a little unorthodox. I don't want to hurt you. Could you do it with Triple H? And he's like, well, yeah, but I didn't think I could just come back and be in the main event.
Yeah.
And Vince assures him that no, it is a big deal for him coming back. And so they switched to like now he's the one that brought Triple H up, but Triple H is now the ungrateful star who's trying to take the spotlight for himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's such a great point. I love how you brought this up because I was going back and I was watching and I vividly remember when Shawn Michaels is attacked and how battered and bruised he looks. And I remember Triple H almost playing the baby face in this role. Do you remember his promo he was cutting in the ring? I don't remember the words, but I remember the reaction from the crowd. Almost like him telling the world that he was going to find the person who attacked Shawn Michaels. And it was almost like, dude, you just betrayed him like a couple of weeks ago. Like, I don't understand how you go from bad to good that quickly. And then right from there, we see Shawn Michaels up here on the screen, and he looks bad. I mean, those stories, those war stories about getting beat up by like 45 Marines in a bar the night before an Intercontinental Championship match. I don't even think he looked like he didn't look that bad back then. He looked awful here. So the makeup team or however they did it, they did a phenomenal job. I remember Shawn Michaels sitting there saying he has footage. We see Triple H just playing this massive heel role only for Shawn to show the footage and for it to like distort and then just to get to high definition like back then was like, whoa, this is 2002. Like, this is crazy. For them to see that it's Triple H standing there all like juiced up because, yeah, he was. And he was all juiced up, looking to the side, you know, wearing that classic cross Triple H shirt. And for the crowd to just immediately be stunned that Triple H was the guy. And Triple H just admits everything. He tells the world, yeah, it was me. He goes on. I'm not going to go into it, but guys, really look it up. And as Shawn Michaels says that, he tells him that he can come back for one more match. And Triple H looks at him almost like, whatever. But when Shawn Michaels says, I think the doctors say I'll be ready for, say, SummerSlam. And, oh, man, when he says that, the place goes absolutely bananas. But what was your feeling when he cut that promo? Because I'm getting chills just thinking about him cutting it.
Oh, my God. It's probably one of the things I've been like that and when Edge's music hit in the 2020 Rumble are probably my two most excited moments as a wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely one of those.
Because both are absolute surprises, whereas like Punk coming back, we knew.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a surprise, and man.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I was a Shawn fan when he retired. I became a kind of like a fan, like I told you that I wasn't going to make the same mistake again with like how I did with Adam Cole. Like I was fearful that Adam Cole was done with wrestling. So I was like, damn. So I went back and started rewatching and started looking at it and analyzing his work from a worker instead of looking at it as a fan. Instead of looking at him like as a smaller guy, I was just like, let me just analyze his matches. So I wasn't going to make the same mistake again because that's what I did to Shawn Michaels. I remember when From the Vault DVD came out, DVDs were fairly new at the time, and me and my ex-girlfriend, Letitia Russo, second time she's been name dropped on here, we went to the mall, Newport Mall in Union City, New Jersey, and we both bought a copy of that DVD, and we watched it like entirely. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this guy was awesome. He was so good. So the fact that he got to come back, even if it was for one more match, I was super excited. I couldn't believe it. If I could compare anything to it now, I would say Edge is the only it's the only right choice, because everything has been leaked to us. Like, Sting's my all-time favorite wrestler. We knew he signed with WWE before Survivor Series, so we were just waiting for him to show up. Like, every time that the lights went out, I thought it was going to be Sting. So it wasn't a surprise. CM Punk coming back on Monday Night Raw after John Cena beats Rey Mysterio for the WWE Championship, that might be a close second, because I had no idea Punk was going to come back. Like, I didn't know that was happening right then.
That wasn't great, though. Like, they should have drug that out longer.
Yes, Punk has said that a lot. Like, he didn't want to come back right away. But Vince is impatient. So
him coming back on Rampage we knew.
Yeah, but it was still
awesome.
Yeah, it was still awesome. But we're getting back to the match. So this match, Eric Bischoff decides that this match cannot go on as a sanctioned match.
Right.
He'll give them the time. He'll let them go out there and beat the crap out of each other, but it's not sanctioned. It's an unsanctioned match. And now, up until this point, I can't really I'm a really big wrestling buff, but I can't remember of another unsanctioned match being on a live pay-per-view. So
yeah, I don't think we had seen it before. We've seen it a lot of times since, but
two of them with Shawn Michaels, two amazing matches. But we'll touch on the second one a little later. So we get to this match. Shawn Michaels comes out ready for a fight. I mean, he's wearing a tank top with a Bible scripture on it. He's got a little bit of his Chippendales gear on, and then he's got cowboy boots that look like he wears those bitches on the farm, because they look like they were worn in, baby. And then he's got blue jeans, and he's ready to fight. Yeah. Triple H, on the other hand, not taking Shawn Michaels seriously, comes out in his ring gear. And me and you, Tyler, we've talked about this match off air ad nauseum, that this is my all-time favorite Shawn Michaels match. This match right here is what I think of when I think of the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. There isn't a single match that I can think of that gave me this feeling. This, to me, was everything. I put this up there as my top 3 or 4 matches I've ever seen in my time watching professional wrestling. This was 2 matches in one, would you say?
At least 2, and you could even say 3.
Yeah. I mean, let's go over it. So we start with them feeling each other out. So it's just like a regular technical match, and then it transitions into a hardcore match. Just like We're just going to beat the crap out of each other. And by the time it gets to the unsanctioned match, you're like, oh my God, like, I don't want Shawn to do this. Like, when he goes up to the top rope and he does that little, like, he tells the crowd, like, I'm crazy, right? And he jumps off the top rope. I was like, oh my God. And you can hear the fear in the announcer's voice when he does it. It's almost like, why? Like this, I think what the fans were thinking was, hopefully this is not a one-off. I think to Shawn Michaels, he was thinking this is a one-off. And I think that's what the office was thinking too. So if he was just going to go out, let him go out with a bang. And I don't know, man. The feeling I got of elation when he pins Triple H. And this is what we're missing in professional wrestling today. The story. We don't have stories like this anymore. We just don't. There's nothing that comes close to this Triple H and Shawn Michaels story. Neither one of them could beat each other with their finisher. They know each other so well. That's another story, another layer to their book in the ring. Shawn can't beat him with the super kick. Triple H can't beat him with the pedigree because they know how to counter it. So what Shawn do? A classic roll-up. I mean, just unbelievable, man.
Well, yeah, even and that they continue to tell that story going forward. Even in that, we'll get to in a little bit the match on Raw.
Yeah,
he didn't pin him with the super kick.
I mean, that's what I love about professional wrestling. It's just the feelings, the story, the false finishes, or the random finish. Like the finish of the matches, I feel like a match can be what, Bobo the Clown deems a 5-star worthy match right now, but then it'll have a crappy finish and it'll ruin it for me. Most recently, I can tell you how what match actually made me feel this way. Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. When I look at that match all the way up until the last 30 seconds, I thought this might be one of the top 10 matches I've ever seen in my life. And then the finish made me not like the entire match. It was How I Met Your Mother bad. Like the finish of that match, because
I don't remember the finish of that match then.
It was just Will Ospreay hitting his finisher on him. Like when they did that awesome Tiger Driver spot. And
yeah, but he hit it 97 times before that. So
that's my point. It was just like, why? Like, I don't know. It's kind of like what I feel like they're doing. Like, I don't think finishers matter to these people anymore. But we'll touch on finishers another day. We'll talk about controversial topics off air. And I think we're going to have a guest on that show because someone that helped us launch our platform here on YouTube actually loves to talk controversial topics in professional wrestling. So we'll definitely touch on finishers and things of that nature. But getting back to the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, this match winds up being phenomenal. It's I believe this winds up being the PWI match of the year, feud of the year, and also the match ends. Shawn Michaels is celebrating, but no, of course not. Because in professional wrestling, this is the way you go. You never give the crowd what they want. And obviously, we know SummerSlam is never going to let anybody. They're always going to give you that crap moment. That's what they do. SummerSlam is like the heel turn pay-per-view. It's the bad guy wins pay-per-view. I mean, there's so many moments of SummerSlam where I feel like they just rip your heart out. And that's what SummerSlam is designed to do. We have more heel turns than we do Bulldog beating Brett. Like we have more of those moments. So Triple H gives him a backbreaker or a backdrop or a side slam, on the chair. He's laughing. He walks away. And obviously Triple H moves on from there. So what did you think of Shawn Michaels coming back and being inserted? Well, before I get there, I'll ask you that question again. Let me just bring this together. So then we get the inception of a brand new gimmick match in professional wrestling, which is the Elimination Chamber. And this match is, it looks brutal. So the premise of this match is there's going to be pods. There's going to be 4 pods in the chamber, and it's going to be chained the whole way around. There's no way in, no way out. It's going to be completely around the wrestling ring, so you can actually wrestle outside the ropes. And there's 4 pods. 2 guys start to the ring, and then after a certain amount of time, one of the pods will open, and someone will be inserted into the match. So we get this beautiful Elimination Chamber match. Shawn Michaels gets inserted, and Triple H has to defend his World Heavyweight Championship. So the match itself, I've gone back and watched it, and I'll fight somebody. This is the best Elimination Chamber match ever. There's nothing close. From beginning to end, RVD injuring Triple H, all of that, that is the smallest flaw of this match. Everything else is perfect. What did you think of this match?
I thought it was great because Shawn won the title at the time. I can tell you the participants in the match don't think it was great.
Well, that happens a lot. Mick Foley doesn't like his WrestleMania 20 match, and everyone else in the world, including like writers and the other wrestlers in the match, think that it was great. All it takes is one person to not like their own match. So if you're telling me that all the participants don't like this match, then that's what happens.
I've heard it from Shawn and Jericho both say that things were going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a pod opened at the wrong time. Was supposed to be somebody else, and the wrong pod opened or something. Because Jericho had talked to Kane about being thrown through a pod. And Kane was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. It's going to hurt you. And when it happened, he said, "Throw me through the pod," and Kane's like, "Fucking right, I'm throwing you through the pod."
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I mean, to me, I felt like this match was so great. It's one of those matches where
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the fans are so interactive, and this match will always be special to me, as I will drop a little nugget here because I happen to be there. So it was really exciting. I did not expect it. And if you remember correctly, which is something that they do all the time, whenever they point out a streak, whenever they point out something like they did most recently with SummerSlam, saying that Charlotte Flair was 5-0 at SummerSlam, and they start going with it, usually that means that person's going to lose. I don't know if you remember this, Tyler, but I'm going to give you this little snippet. Before this match, they had talked about that Shawn Michaels can't win in this arena. He hasn't won in such a long time in this arena. Do you remember that?
MSG, right?
Yes. It was like Shawn doesn't win at MSG, so it's not going to, you know, it doesn't matter.
That's
Shawn's
true.
not going to win.
Belt to Sid.
Yeah. So I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah, they're, you know, I'm a teenager at this point, and I'm thinking like, yeah, he's not going to win. You know what I mean? So when he wins, I mean, it was just awesome. I know a lot of people are annoyed about his tights. I don't give a shit.
Well, you know, he never expected to be in that match. That's why.
Yeah,
the tights were what they were, and the hair was what it was, because he was basically, he says in his book, like, I was sitting at home eating cookies with my son, and I put on a few pounds, and Vince called, and he's like, I wanted to do this, and I want to put the belt back on you for, you know, it feels good. The old guy comes back and wins it in the Garden. And Shawn's like, I'm fat. I cut off all my hair. My knees bugging me. He's like, I don't want to do this because I don't want the knee to make it so I can't wrestle, and then Shawn won't drop the belt again. But Vince talked him into it, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Now
he was thinking that he wasn't going to do anything. He might do something for Mania.
Yeah. I mean, he wins the title on November 17th. And then he drops it a month later. But before he drops it, we get one of the, I want to say the most underwhelming matches, but I personally liked it. And it was a dream match of sorts. And it was the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Rob Van Dam, which at the time was everybody's wet dream. Wrestling fans all over the globe wanted to see this match. Whenever they thought of RVD, they thought of Shawn Michaels. It was weird. I didn't even think their styles meshed
at all.
I thought they, but for some reason, this was a match that everybody wanted to see. Shawn's always done better working technical guys. Whenever he works another like high flyer, or he works a high flyer altogether, the matches kind of seem clunky. Like he doesn't know how to be the big man in the match. You know what I mean? Like Shawn's very good at everything, but being like the guy who receives the plancha, the guy who gets the suicide dive, like he's usually the guy doing that stuff. So it's almost like it felt a little out of sorts.
Yeah.
What did you think of this match when it initially happened?
Yeah, it wasn't great. If you want Shawn to be the bigger guy or to be the aggressor, you have to put him in there with the bigger guy. You look at his matches like the first title reign, the match he had with Nash, the No Holds Barred, the match he had with Mankind. Like they're both bigger guys, and they allowed him to be more aggressive. When he's wrestling a guy like RVD, he feels like he has to play his normal role.
Yeah.
That's one thing he was never good at, being the aggressor in like a regular match, except for a couple that we'll get to later, much later in his career.
Absolutely. But moving on from here, he drops the title at December 15th, Armageddon, in a 3 Stages of Hell match. This would be Triple H's second 3 Stages of Hell win in a row. Now, he beat 2 of the biggest stars in the modern day era. And I listened to this thing yesterday, and I love this. Mick Foley recently said that Shawn Michaels was the best wrestler of this generation. And when he says this generation, he says like pay-per-view, like monthly pay-per-views. Shawn Michaels was the best wrestler of the monthly pay-per-view era. And I love that. I love that distinction. But he drops the championship to him almost immediately. Fans are livid. And from there, I don't know why he just jumps out of a feud with Triple H, but he jumps right into one of the best feuds in Shawn Michaels history, which is his feud with Y2J Chris Jericho. What was your initial thought about Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels?
I was excited because I'm a huge fan of both of them.
Yes.
And had been since I saw Lionheart Chris Jericho wrestle Arn Anderson in WCW in like '96.
Yeah.
And like the similarities are obvious.
Yes, no question.
You don't even have to know that Chris says he patterned himself after Shawn to see it.
Yeah. I mean, Chris might throw the worst super kick in the history of the business, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not great.
It's not great at all.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
They're still both just two of the greatest performers of all time. And
agreed.
Yeah, I was really excited. Again, Shawn after SummerSlam after Survivor Series, he didn't want to do anything till Mania, and he's like, I'll do this segment and we can do like an angle at the Rumble, but I don't want to have a match until Mania.
Yeah. I personally always thought to myself, like, I'll just give you a quick snippet. For me, I remember the first time I became a real fan of Chris Jericho, I think was early WCW. He kind of came out with what later would be known as like the Hardy sleeves. He had like these sleeves with the finger thing through it, and his hair was all messed up with like the ponytail on top, like the samurai thing. And he was just kind of going crazy. But I remember when I started researching his career and I started going back and like watching RF videos, which were like the best of videos. RF Video used to be this company that would do like, they would produce these awesome best of matches. And it would be like 4-hour video. I don't know if you've ever had a VHS and they had the little red tab on it. You can flip that tab and switch it in the other direction. And you can record off a 2-hour VHS. You can actually record 6 hours. Now it would be a little bit grainier. But back then, watching wrestling, this is what the definition was like. But I remember watching Chris Jericho in Japan at the Super J Cup, and he just like he's wrestling Chris Benoit, and he just yells at him across the ring, and he just goes, "Come on, motherfucker!" And I remember thinking like, "Yes, this dude right here."
And then Benoit slaps the shit out of him.
Yes. I mean, but we'll touch on Benoit in a little bit. But yeah, so I thought I never understood how people compared these two. I never saw that. Even to this day, I don't see the similarity. I don't know what. I know that that's something Jericho has said in the past. Eric Bischoff has said it in the past that like, and so has Paul Heyman, that like they wanted Chris Jericho to be like the Shawn Michaels of WCW. I just didn't see it. I know it's his favorite wrestler, but I pointed this out.
They look similar.
I suppose. I don't really think so. I think, but I mean, I love them both. So it's not. I'm not knocking it. I just didn't really see what everybody else saw. I always thought like Jericho was a little bit bigger, like a little bit meatier. I thought he wrestled a more grounded style. He was a submission finisher wrestler. His high flying moves was the springboard drop kick to the outside and his the lion salt. I didn't really think that he did anything that Shawn Michaels does.
I think that he patterned himself a lot after Rocker Shawn Michaels because that was what he saw when he was, coming up in the business.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more similarities to that than there are HBK.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. This match itself was amazing. The consensus is that this was the match of the night at WrestleMania. Did you feel that way when you watched this match?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of the finish?
The finish where, again, he wins.
He uses the Owen Hart pin. The pin that was like made famous by Owen Hart, yes.
I knew it wasn't a super kick. It was one of those weird. And then they hug, and then it's great.
Jericho turns absolutely heel and low blows Shawn Michaels and he mushes his face. It's one of the best ways to end the match. I loved it. It was, again, the story, the layers, it just made so much sense to me that it ended that way because, like you're saying, if Jericho patterned his career after Shawn Michaels, he would know to avoid the super kick. He would
Right.
know, like, if I'm going to take a super kick, if I can't stop it, if it's coming, I need to do it when the ref's not around. But if I'm going to, I'm going to avoid it for the actual finish of the match. And that's when HBK whips out the pin made famous by the Rocket Owen Hart, specifically the Rocket, because that's the first time he did that pin. And it works. It just absolutely works. And I believe the story to this match is they both planned a half of it, right?
Right. So Jericho was shopping for tights or whatever, and he got the finish came to him, and then for WrestleMania you meet up and you go over your match and you book time with an agent, and it can take hours. And they sat down, and it took 20 minutes because Shawn's like, "Well, I came up with the whole first half." It might be the other way around, but regardless, either way, one of them they had come up with opposite halves of the match.
Yeah.
Initially Jericho was like, he didn't understand why he wasn't winning because, he's working there full time and he's the one that needs to kind of be built.
Yes.
And so that's what Pat Patterson's like, well, yeah, but okay, so let's do this. And that's why we get the, nut shot and the mush and everything at the end. Because Pat Patterson is a friggin' genius.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. The way he just crafts matches. Yes, absolutely. But, so we move on from here to where Shawn Michaels' career really starts rocking. I mean, he goes into like nonstop action here for a little bit. So we go from here to him actually being inserted into the triple threat at WrestleMania. So as the story goes, if I can just go back to WrestleMania 15, Shawn Michaels was an advocate that the world title should not be defended in a triple threat match at WrestleMania. It was his call. It was his pretty much manipulation of the facts to Vince McMahon that makes Vince McMahon just do a one-on-one with The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And
yes, but do you know what he wanted it to be Rock and Foley?
Okay. Well, I mean, either way, that's not how Foley takes it. You can listen to his podcast. He talks about it, and he gets very angry when he talks about it, which is weird to hear Foley get angry. So, and this match actually bothers him.
He says it in his book that Shawn was pushing for it to be them two, but then they're like, no, if it's going to be one-on-one, it's going to be with Austin.
Of course, because it's the biggest name in probably the history of pro wrestling. But moving on from there, we get it. So Chris Benoit he enters the Royal Rumble at number 1. He wins the Royal Rumble, and now he picks Triple H. He wants the big gold belt. That's the belt he's fighting for. He goes after this belt, and I really wanted it to be the other way. I wanted it to be him versus Brock Lesnar, but that's not how it happens. He wins the Royal Rumble. He challenges Triple H. HBK is trying to convince him, telling him he needs to finish this feud with Triple H. Benoit will not. What?
Because they're coming off the double pin match on Raw.
Yes.
And then the double last man standing double count out.
Yes. They had some really great gimmick matches, as well as the Hell in a Cell match that they have a little bit later on. Yeah. But so we have this moment where it's the contract signing, classic WWE contract signing, and we have Chris Benoit in the ring getting ready to sign the contract. Shawn Michaels comes out, pleads with him one more time. Please don't do this. I need this match. Benoit kind of shrugs it off, only to be met with a super kick. He gets the sweet chin music, and Shawn Michaels signs his contract. And as Mick Foley has stated in the past, and you have said on multiple occasions as well, that's not legally binding. I don't care.
Not how contracts work.
It doesn't matter. It's professional wrestling. It's General Hospital.
Exactly.
So now Shawn Michaels has signed the contract, and we go from a one-on-one match with Chris Benoit versus Triple H to a triple threat match with the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels being inserted into the main event at WrestleMania 20. Again, I was lucky enough to having been there with my father. That was a surprise. I did not know I was going. If I could tell you the story correctly, 1 minute on that Sunday, I'm washing clothes at the local laundromat. My friend from school, Caitlin walks in because she lived near the laundromat. She kind of walked through the laundromat because they had 2 entrances so she can go home. She sees me folding clothes. It's like 2.5 hours before. I've never told you this story, have I?
No, you have not.
Okay. It's 2.5 hours before WrestleMania, and I'm trying to fold clothes really fast. My chore was to fold everyone's clothes. My stepmom, my dad, mine. I had to like go wash the clothes and take care of everything. That was my chore, my massive chore. And she goes, are you going to watch WrestleMania? And I was like, yeah, I'm getting ready to. It's going to be awesome. I go home, and my dad is completely dressed, ready to go on a Sunday, which is just weird because my dad's Sundays they had become so routine. I knew. He gets up in the morning. He makes us a hot dog frittata, which is it's my all-time favorite breakfast. Arthur will tell you it's actually his too. I made it for him, and once I told him this was what Abuelo used to make me, now it's his favorite. And then he surprises me. My dad was all about surprises. He wanted to surprise me all the time, and he goes, Louis, let's go. I don't know where we're going. I'm upset, but I'm scared of my dad. My dad never physically harmed me. He never yelled at me, but he was just an intimidating presence. But he was like my best friend. He takes me. All of a sudden, we go to New York City. My dad didn't believe in taking the trains. He drives us into New York City, and I'm thinking like, oh, what are we doing here? And all of a sudden, he goes, Louis, did you check the back seat? I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I was like, no. And then my Shawn Michaels shirt was sitting on the chair in the back, and he goes, let's go watch some wrestling. And there it goes, WrestleMania 20.
Wow!
I mean, he said he got the tickets from his job. I'll never forget it. It was such a great moment. I remember at the time I was so nervous to tell this story because I didn't think anybody would believe me. I remember thinking it, and I remember I had a girl, like I cut school once, and me and this girl had hung out at the house all day, and we watched Empire, and we watched like Sexaholics, the John Leguizamo comedy special, and she was like, oh, your room is pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, but check this out. And I opened like a cigar box and show her my WrestleMania 20 ticket, and she's like, what? You were there? But like I remember telling people like, oh yeah, I went to WrestleMania, and they were like, sure you did. Like that's how it was met, because nobody believed me. So I showed the ticket, and they were like, oh, you bought that ticket off eBay. Like, why would I buy a ticket off eBay? Yeah, I mean, Jersey, it's Jersey. But this match itself, my God, this might be top 2 WrestleMania match all time. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, this is incredible.
I mean,
it's just one of the best things I've ever seen in pro wrestling.
Yeah. It is by far one of the cleanest matches I've ever seen. There is very minimal hiccups in the match. I mean, we had pretty much gotten a decent card. We had the return of The Undertaker, the longest entrance in professional wrestling history. For people that complain about Roman Reigns, you didn't have to grow up in the era where this guy literally took, like, I don't know. It was like Willy Wonka doing the reverse thing, walking to the ring. It was like he took one step forward and took like 30 steps back. It was the worst entrance in the history of professional wrestling. I will stand on that all by myself. I remember thinking like, God, why is this guy out here? Just so annoyed. I wanted to see Eddie Guerrero. I wanted to see Kurt Angle. I wanted to see The Rock, And anyway, we get Undertaker versus Kane, and Undertaker's return to the dead man gimmick. We get The Rock, Hollywood Rock comes back to help make Randy Orton, because as people don't know, which we'll touch on in a different subject, we will spotlight Randy Orton. I don't know if Tyler will be there for that because he hates Randy Orton, but I would love to spotlight
Randy Orton.
Don't lie on here. Don't lie. People can hear. People can see you.
I'm bored by him at this point.
Listen. My abuela used to tell me when I was little, whenever I would lie, she would say, Papa, Dios te castiga. You know what that means? That means God will punish you if you lie. That's what that means. That she would say that to me, scare the crap out of me when I was a little boy all the time. I don't know, man. It's crazy. So, yeah, we will touch on that. But this match was specifically designed to make Randy Orton. The Rock had asked to join this match. That was great. The match itself, I liked it. I thought it was a spectacle. Seeing Ric Flair and The Rock in the ring is great. We obviously get the awesome finish, but with Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, we will actually do a WrestleMania 20 spotlight in the future. Well, we will talk specifically what I'd like to do with Tyler. I think we've talked about this in the past. We're going to dedicate one podcast to every single WrestleMania. We're going to do WrestleMania 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're just going to do them all, guys. So we're looking at 40 podcasts. So get ready. Tyler's excited, I could tell.
Those first couple are going to be rough.
No, stop. There's some great matches, man. We got the Mr. T. Roddy Piper match. We got the boxing match, 2 different pay-per-views. We have the Ricky Steamboat versus the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah,
we have
that's where it gets good.
Yeah, we have Ted DiBiase versus Macho Man Randy Savage. Like, there's some solid matches.
Oh yeah, the first two are going to be rough, but after that it picks up.
Yeah. Those might be like half an hour podcasts, but we'll move. Whatever. Maybe we'll do 1 and 2 together because you're right. They're kind of rough, but
that was what that look was about. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. But we definitely like to do them because they are super important to wrestling because they actually
we wouldn't be here without them.
Yes, but also they actually show you that WrestleMania was never designed to be about the wrestlers. It was always designed to be about outside people coming into the business. It is about celebrity interaction. WrestleMania has, since the first one, has been all about the celebrities. We will touch on that when we get to that time. But getting back to Shawn Michaels, I remember thinking to myself, Shawn is going to win. There's no reason why they'd have him super kick his way into the match, and I really thought he was going to win. What did you think?
No, we all thought Benoit was going to win. Where I was watching it at a guy who was in a fantasy league with us, Matt Miller's house, and we all thought Benoit was going to win because there was no other way.
Well, I was rooting for Chris Benoit, but I expected him to win. And when he goes to hit that super kick and Benoit ducks under him, throws him over the top rope, I thought to myself, holy crap, this was 100% one of the coolest spots I've ever seen, to watch Benoit point at Shawn Michaels as he's on the outside, to turn around, to get kicked in the gut for the pedigree. The best reversal for the pedigree I've ever seen in my life was done at WrestleMania 20 by Chris Benoit. Go back and watch that reversal. It is so clean. As a matter of fact, Chris Benoit has had 2 of the cleanest, best reversals in professional wrestling history, and I will stand on that. He has the WrestleMania 20 reversal, and then 6 months or 4 months later at SummerSlam, when he drops the title to Randy Orton, the reversal from the crippler crossface to the RKO, to the best reversals I've ever seen are done by Benoit. But unfortunately, we're not going to do a wrestler spotlight on Benoit. But we probably could, but it would probably be like a 10-hour spotlight. So moving on to this match, we get an immediate rematch at the next pay-per-view. And then, guys, as much as I would love to tell you information about this, Tyler has told me this story. I learned this specific story from Tyler. So, Tyler, you talk about the rematch. Go ahead.
Okay, so they set up the rematch, and they're looking for a way to end it. And Shawn's like, well, they're going to hate me there regardless because it's in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Yes.
Which is, a few hours from where Bret Hart is from. They're going to hate me there anyways. So why don't you just have me tap out to his finish?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they came up with the finish. There's a spot with the sharpshooter in there that gives everyone a few little goosebumps and scary moments.
Yep.
This match may be better than the first. I don't know. They're close. They're both amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the story on the finish.
Well, if I can just give you an opinion about this match, I agree with you. Yes, it might be better than the first. But have you ever remembered a pay-per-view, like a back-to-back, like twinning? Like we have the triple threat at WrestleMania 20, the triple threat at Backlash, and for both of the matches to be like match of the year candidates. Like that doesn't happen, right?
Not often.
Daniel Bryan and CM Punk had back-to-back-to-back matches at pay-per-views. Not every match is great. This match and the WrestleMania match, they're just as good. I could see picking either one as the better match. And I wouldn't be mad at either answer.
Yeah, the only times I can think about it, happening, or we'll get to it later. In this show with Shawn and someone we'll talk about later, and Chris Jericho and Rey Mysterio in 2009 when they had their Intercontinental title feud 3 months in a row. They had just incredible matches.
Yeah. So moving on from this, we have, we move on from this, and on a Taboo Tuesday episode, Shawn Michaels actually gets injured. He tears his meniscus, which was another
torn meniscus.
Yeah, a legit injury. He doesn't make a comeback until 2005 at the Royal Rumble. He's eliminated by Kurt Angle. In seeking revenge, he eliminates Kurt Angle, and that leads to one of the most, and yes, I'm going to say this with my fucking chest out. It leads to one of the most underrated matches ever, because nobody ever talks about it as a top 5 WrestleMania match. It is ridiculous. If you Bleacher Report this, if you look up any type of list, Bleacher Report, Sportsopedia, any type of match, this match never comes up as a top, as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever. But we have and they actually do have back-to-back, great matches with different finishes.
Yes.
But we have what many considered the best ever and the best of that time, because there was a lot of people arguing at the time. I remember a lot of wrestling fan bases arguing that who's better, Benoit, who's better, Angle. I can't remember of a more loaded roster. You had Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, all on the same, all in the same company at the same time. Not to mention the other guys like Edge, Jeff Hardy. These were guys, for the people that don't think Jeff Hardy's a good wrestler, go fuck yourself. You don't know what you're talking about. You've never done it. You've never done it, so just be quiet. He's a great wrestler. He's kind of sloppy. He would have been the biggest star to ever come out of ECW if he was in that company. But getting back to this, I mean, can you remember of a time where the roster was more loaded than that? And then we were about to make 2 more guys with John Cena and Batista, right?
Yeah, from basically from.
Oh, I didn't even mention Randy Orton. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Basically, from about 2000 to about 2005-06, we were just completely spoiled by
absolutely
the depth of the roster and the fact that for a lot of that time, the stories were good for everybody. And
yeah. I mean, obviously, we have that beautiful we have the sexy Kurt thing with Kurt Angle back-to-back WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels steals the show. Yeah. That's right. There you go. We have back-to-back WrestleMania stolen by the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Obviously, what a
back-to-back. Thank you.
Yeah, back-to-back. We'll get to the next one. So
no. I'm counting.
Oh yeah, 19. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we have that amazing little feud there with Kurt Angle. He goes on to there, and then we have the return that no one saw coming of D-Generation X, who was feuding with, at the time, the Spirit Squad. And the Spirit Squad is one of the best groups that I can remember. I actually was a fan of them. I dug them, man. Did you like the Spirit Squad?
I mean, I thought most of the guys in there could work. Yeah. They were young, athletic guys. I mean, I think the feud was really with the McMahons, and the Spirit Squad was kind of their avatar.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I guess I just kind of felt like that was a group like the Nexus, where there was so much more that they could have gotten out of it, and they didn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but I never felt about the Nexus the way I felt about the Spirit Squad, like Kenny Dykstra, Dolph Ziggler. I felt like these guys were actually good, and I didn't think everybody in the Nexus was good, like Tarver, Heath Slater. I didn't think these guys were good. Wade Barrett, I didn't think these guys were actually good wrestlers. I thought Wade Barrett just kind of fit the mold. It was oh yeah, he's a combination of John Cena and Randy Orton, his look, so that's why they want to make him a feature. But I didn't think he was great. I didn't like him on the NXT show either. But yeah, so we go from there to essentially one of the funniest matches ever, which is the SummerSlam match against Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And this was a match that I didn't understand at the time. I never wanted this match in my life. I never thought like, oh, what would it be like to see Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan? But from what I've been told, I'm in the minority here. Apparently, a lot of people dreamt this match up. Were you one of those people?
So this is before we knew all we know about Hogan now. And yeah, I mean, when Shawn brings Hogan back to team up with him against Muhammad Hassan and Daivari, it's a cool moment and it's exciting. Like, you know, it's a cool moment.
Yes.
And then they do, I believe, a 6-man Shawn, Cena, and Hogan on Raw.
That's the pose off. The pose off.
Yeah, when Cena's like, "You think you can get him?" He's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." And he gets Hogan to come and be their partner. And then obviously he turns on Hogan. I wasn't as excited for this match, really, because I mean at that point I knew Hogan was limited to what he could do. You know.
Yeah. Well, I remember for me that SummerSlam was pretty unmemorable. Right?
Really?
Yeah, I don't remember any other matches. I mean, if you want to name drop them real quick, I don't remember any other matches from this card.
Dominic on a pole?
Yeah, I guess you're right. There's the Eddie match or whatever. I think that this overshadowed the whole pay-per-view, though, with Shawn Michaels versus, the consensus Mount Rushmore guy in Hulk Hogan. I just thought this match
Jericho versus Cena.
Yeah. I have to jump off camera for a second, so why don't you talk about the other matches in the card real quick while
Yeah, so this was a pretty good show, honestly. We had the Matt Hardy Edge the beginning of that feud after obviously the real life situation that dictated that. We had I called it Dominic on a pole, but it was a ladder match for custody of Dominic between Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero, and they had an excellent feud in 2005. Jericho versus Cena in the main event for the WWE title was supposed to be Jericho's last WWE match. They had a really good match and actually came back the next night with an even better one on Raw. But yeah, so Hogan versus Shawn, for those of you who don't know, was supposed to be a trilogy. Hogan's supposed to win the first. Shawn gets his win back, and I'm not sure how it was going to finish. I think Hogan was gonna get the win to finish it out. But suddenly Hogan has issues and doesn't think he can wrestle 3 matches, which, I mean, the guy does have legitimate back issues. So maybe. But it was just all of a sudden. And also, okay, so we're doing 1 match. You would think he would put over the guy who's, one of the top guys in the company. But no, he refused to do business. And the famous "that doesn't work for me, brother" had to get the win. So Shawn basically was like, all right, well, if you're going to do this, I'm just going to basically act like a child. And he throws a temper tantrum for the entire match and oversells everything Hogan does. Just bounces around like one of those Super Balls that you put like a quarter in the little machine at Walmart. It comes out and you get the little bouncy ball. That is essentially Shawn Michaels in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he oversold everything, but like, did you touch on why he oversold everything?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, he was the best part of this match. Without him, this match doesn't get made because there was a lot to be said about Hulk Hogan and how his work style was kind of like really slow and he wasn't able to do a lot of extra stuff. At this point, he had been through a couple of injuries and it was a while after he had come back. So Shawn Michaels, I don't understand the finish of this match. I don't understand why they went the route they did. Obviously, as
you mean with Hogan winning?
Yeah.
Well, the other alternative didn't work for him, brother.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next. Obviously, Eric Bischoff thinks that that's a conspiracy theory that us marks make up, and listen. I'm sorry, you can't be objective. Eric Bischoff to Hulk Hogan is Tyler to Finn Balor. It's just not. It's impossible for you to be objective. So moving on, that was a shot, by the way. That was a Conrad Thompson shot. Just name drop that guy right there. I just want to let you know that was a shot, brother. That was a shot.
Hey, itch in my eye.
Yeah. But so from there we get obviously we well go ahead.
So from there, he had the feud with the McMahons, and he has the WrestleMania match with Vince,
Yeah.
which is better than it had any right to be.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that was the match of the night. Go Google that shit. A lot of people say that.
I'm running through the card in my head. It's not, but okay. It's not even the best hardcore match of the night, but that's fine.
But a lot of people, I think what drives people to say things like, you know, to drop hyperbole like that is the fact that like the match had no right being that good.
To be good, yes, I agree.
And that's what does it for people. It's like,
so
how? Like it's Vince McMahon. Vince has never had a match that good.
So for me, it's the best performance of the night. Shawn Michaels carrying Vince McMahon to that match.
Absolutely.
But I still think there were other matches.
I do want to point out that
that's okay.
Yeah, I do want to point out that it has a spot in the match that apparently even hardcore wrestlers like Mick Foley, Chris Hero, Terry Funk, John Moxley have actually said that it's their least favorite spot in hardcore wrestling, which is waiting for an impact move while stuck inside a trash can. Yeah. I mean, because they don't know when it's coming. You don't know when to brace yourself. You don't know any of that. So it's just like, well, I might as well just take it. But I mean, honestly, Vince had some really great feuds, but no feud that Vince McMahon has ever had will ever eclipse his Stone Cold Steve Austin and his Shawn Michaels feud. I can't think of a single feud he's ever had with any other wrestler. And the Triple H feud was whack as fuck. I didn't like that feud. I didn't think it was cool. I think Stephanie made that feud. But Vince himself, even his feud with his son wasn't this good.
I actually think the Triple H, that is Vince's best match. But
oh no,
the Armageddon match.
Nah, God, I couldn't disagree more. But like, you know, there's no wrong or there's no right answer. It's wrestling. We're both allowed to like what we like.
It's just the drama is all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I swear I don't love the drama. It loves me.
Yeah.
Shout out Tay Tay.
Yeah, so we do have that wonderful feud with D-Generation X and Rated RKO. They had some really awesome vignettes from this feud. What did you think about this feud?
Oh my god, I was so excited when this feud started. This was back in the day where a mutual friend of ours, John Bratz, and I would always play poker every night, and we'd come home on Monday nights after wherever we were playing. And I would have recorded Raw and we'd watch it. Yeah. I can remember us both just marking out when this feud started because
absolutely
those are four of the guys that we loved the most of the time. See, I didn't always hate Randy Orton.
Oh, okay. All right. Understood. Well, I mean, honestly, I gotta say, I really thought that D-Generation X, like this version, whether it was the early 90s, the mid 90s, or this one, I thought these two specific wrestlers being in the D-Generation X was the best version of the group. I wasn't a fan of adding the New Age Outlaws. I wasn't a fan of DX with the New Age Outlaws and X-Pac. I just wasn't. I didn't really like them. Yeah, but I really did like Shawn and Triple H. I thought they were a perfect team.
Yeah, I mean, they're best friends. So, like, it seems like, you know, to me, it seemed like they were having fun. Now, apparently, I found out years later that Shawn was uncomfortable in a lot of the 2006 version. That's why you see him off camera a lot. Like there's one skit where they're having
a barbecue,
and there's an attractive woman and Triple H, whatever wants to. So there's sexual innuendos and whatnot. So he's like, "Hey, Shawn, is that Mr. Fuji?" And Shawn's like, "I love Mr. Fuji," and he comes back. That wasn't Mr. Fuji.
Yeah. I mean, it was great.
It was great.
We did, yeah. So we did get some nice little feuds here and there, but now we have to touch on one of. We're gonna talk about this bittersweet feud here. Bittersweet because I really wanted the opposite of what we got in the finish. But now we move on to John Cena. So now we have the guy in professional wrestling, and he's being put in a position to wrestle who many consider to be the greatest of all time. What were your initial thoughts when you found out that it was going to be John Cena versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania? What was the first thing that came to mind?
Great. Shawn's going to lose to Cena.
Well, that's a really pessimistic way of thinking.
Well, I mean, come on. Everyone lost to Cena. This is not the time when we hadn't appreciated John Cena yet. It was still Cena sucks.
Understood. I mean, yeah, I honestly thought that they were going to pull the trigger, and I thought they were going to put the strap on Shawn. Now, many reports, including Shawn Michaels, so it's not just, Bobo the Clown and Wade Keller, we're talking about Shawn Michaels himself has said that he didn't want the strap at this point in his career. He didn't want the responsibility. He didn't want to be at, autograph signings all the time. He didn't want to be representing the company on morning talk shows or tonight shows or anything like that. He wanted to be home with his family. So he was like, I'll do what you need me to do. I'll give back to the company. I'll do the job for anybody you want, but I don't want the title. Which is why, because all reports indicated, and Bobo has actually said this on whenever he talks about this match, Cena was supposed to lose the title to Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. And so Shawn put the kibosh on that. What do you think when you hear that we were supposed to get essentially a WrestleMania 12 ending with Shawn Michaels at this point in his career, where he was going to sign off a WrestleMania with a pyro, doing his awesome Shawn Michaels thing, and we didn't get it because he didn't want it? Well,
I would love to have seen it, but I respect the man for putting his family above the business. So
yes,
as much as I would have loved to have seen it, I can't hate on that. You have to respect someone who's gonna put their family above their career when it would have meant probably I mean, not that he's hurting for money, but it would have meant millions of more dollars probably for him.
Absolutely, no question. I mean, we did get they had some great matches. I remember at the time, and I don't know if you remember this, Tyler, at the time, consensus was this match wasn't great. There was a lot of people that felt like John Cena finally gave Shawn Michaels a bad WrestleMania match. Do you remember this being a narrative out there before the Raw match?
I don't really remember the narrative because I don't necessarily listen to narratives a whole lot. I remember thinking it was, it was fine. It was good.
Well, I've gone back and watched this match, and I can tell you it might possibly be one of John Cena's top 2 or 3 matches all time. And his top 2 or 3 matches all time both include Shawn Michaels. So, I mean, just all around storytelling and of everything he's done, these are possibly when I think of, if I could think of Mount Rushmore Cena matches, SummerSlam, Bryan, Money in the Bank, CM Punk, the other 2 are Shawn Michaels. I'm not putting any other matches in there. But look at who he worked in all 4 of these matches.
Right.
Those are his best matches ever. He never had a good match with Triple H. At the point that he would have had a good match with Batista, because Batista had finally gotten it and Batista was actually becoming a really good in-ring performer, John Cena had started doing the motto that Hulk Hogan had given him advice on, which is keep your feet on the ground, brother. So he had changed his style.
I like their 2010 feud, but that's me.
Who?
Cena and Batista.
Yes, that's what I said at the time. But it was mostly Cena was selling it on the microphone, but Batista was doing the work in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree, but I do like their matches. I thought, because I didn't expect them to be any good, and they were decent.
Yeah. So after this, we have Randy Orton becomes the WWE champion, and we move on to obviously one of the coolest feuds ever. Tyler and I have talked about an underappreciated match in professional wrestling history. Tyler, we both have great things to say about this match, but I really love your opinion on the banned super kick match. So why don't you talk about that match for a little bit?
I mean, to me, yeah, I absolutely love this match. I do think it's criminally underrated. It just shows the creativity of both guys to be able to work this match. And the super kick is banned, but it's still like it's incorporated into the match.
Yes.
As things should be. Like, they do it right, basically. Like, you know how sometimes it's like, well, if he gets DQ'd, he could lose the title. But, like, they never even tease a DQ. They tease the super kick 3 or 4 times here, and every time Orton reacts, and then Shawn will go, he goes to the crossface.
Yeah.
And then he goes for something else. And then I think the third time is when Orton's like, nope, and hits him with the RKO for the pin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they just do it absolutely right. Like, if I feel like this is something that should be shown to up and coming wrestlers in their training, in their school. This is something that should be mandatory viewing.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, this feud ends with Shawn Michaels helping do the job for Randy Orton. At this point, Randy Orton was solidified as one of the guys. I mean, I remember at this time we had SmackDown versus Raw at the video game for PlayStation, and I remember like the intro of it was Cena walking from one side, Randy Orton walking from the other side. They were the two faces of the company. It was no question that's the feud everybody wanted to see, and we would see like 15 years of those two wrestling each other, which I'm sure we could do like a retrospective on Cena versus Orton in the future. But right now we're going to stay on topic with Shawn Michaels. After this, I cannot describe to you what it would feel like. And this is one of the reasons that I'm really upset that we never got Bryan versus HBK, because we know how much this match means to Shawn Michaels. So to hear, this is the second time where he's kind of been a little bit hypocritical in the sense of a match. But we have Shawn Michaels versus his all-time favorite wrestler, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, in a career like if Ric Flair loses, he must retire. Now we later find out he doesn't retire anyway, but we get this like teacher versus student. Yes, but we get this teacher versus student match. What was your opinion of this match? We could just touch on it shortly because there wasn't a massive feud or anything. It was just pretty much a quick build.
No, actually, there is one other match that I want to touch on before that.
Okay.
It's another really underrated match. Shawn closes out the year at the Armageddon pay-per-view. This is the pay-per-view that Chris Jericho made his return at to wrestle Orton. But Shawn closes out the year with a match against Mr. Kennedy, which I think you should go out of your way to watch if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
Because it's really good. But getting back to the match with Flair, I mean, I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought it was the right way to retire Rick, although as it turns out, it wasn't his retirement, and he didn't even really want to retire. Vince just decided he was too old. But I thought it was the right guy, and I thought they told the right story. The promo on the SmackDown before with the old Yeller, and then Flair's, flipping out. I'll show you old Yeller, yada yada yada.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was classic Nature Boy Ric Flair. It was classic Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. It was one of they have a better match in the early 90s together when the Shawn Michaels is still with the Rockers. This match is fine. I think this is one of those matches like the night one main event we got this year at WrestleMania where the story was so much better than the actual match. So to me, that's why I don't want to give like a lot of time to it. I don't think the match is as I wouldn't put this like in the top 10 of Shawn Michaels matches ever. I think story-wise, you could probably put it in the top 3, I guess, because of what it means. But I think part of the reason I'm also a little like annoyed with this story is because years later, Shawn Michaels had the chance to do the exact same thing for Daniel Bryan, and he actually thought that story was stupid. He says it on a podcast that he thought teacher versus student was stupid. There's no need for him to come back to wrestle that match. And I'm thinking like, your favorite wrestler did it for you. Like I don't understand. It's just one of those things.
I don't necessarily think that he did it for him as much as it was, well, you're gonna retire. Who do you want to do it? Okay, so it's Shawn.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to touch on this quick because now we're getting into one of the biggest feuds in Shawn Michaels' career, and this is their feud
versus Batista.
No, I wasn't even going to touch about that. I'm talking about his feud with Chris Jericho. This feud right here, as Jericho has stated multiple times, I believe he talks about this in his book. I believe he talks about this on his podcast, and he has mentioned it in interviews. This was supposed to be a one-off match.
Yep.
And Jericho and Shawn fought for this 6-month program. And I'm so glad they did.
Yeah, so story goes, they're gonna have the one-off match because Jericho was the referee for the first match against Batista where Shawn fakes the injury.
Yes.
And somehow that leads to them needing to have a match. I don't really recall why.
He calls him a liar and a cheater. He thought he cheated. He faked an injury.
I thought that was after.
Doesn't he beat Batista the first time by faking an injury and then hitting a super kick?
Batista, and then I think the first match is like they have a match and he's like, "I respect you. I just want to have a match with you." And then after he calls him a liar,
yeah,
throws him into the thing.
Yes, yes, on the highlight reel.
Right. So the story goes that they have the match and then they ask each other like, "What are you doing next?" He's like, "Well," they're like, "Well, nothing really. I don't know." So they both go to creative and they're like, "Look, this match was great. We know we have chemistry. Neither one of us are doing anything. Mm-hmm. Why don't we come up with something?" And then from there, they have one of the best feuds ever.
Yeah, it is quite possibly the best feud in Chris Jericho's career. I won't go as far to say that with Shawn Michaels, but we will ask these questions at the end of this podcast. We're almost done, guys. The rest of his career kind of flies by here towards the end. But yeah, this is quite possibly one of the like definitely top 2 or 3 feuds in Shawn Michaels' career. It was a unexpected feud, and it turned out to be one of the best feuds. Obviously, we have somewhere, we have this beautiful highlight reel with Rebecca taking a shot and then telling Chris Jericho, like, "Is that all you got backstage?" But I remember like Jericho talks.
That's all you got.
Yeah, Jericho actually thought he like broke her nose or whatever.
Shawn was pissed.
Yeah, of course. I mean, don't punch
at himself though. At himself.
Oh yeah,
like, I never should have let this happen.
Yeah. But I mean, it turns out to be a great television, and it gave us what we wanted. We hated Chris Jericho, so we get the second unsanctioned match in Shawn Michaels' career, which, again, I know I'm all by myself here. I think this match is better than the ladder match. Yeah, but I know Jericho himself.
Disagree on that.
Yeah, I know Chris Jericho himself says the ladder match is his favorite match ever. But to me, I love these unsanctioned matches. I think they're great, and I never saw. I think it's because they're so out of the Shawn Michaels norm. So they're super special.
To me, what takes away from this match partially is the finish. If it's an unsanctioned match, how can the ref stop it?
Well, because it's televised. It's not a pay-per-view.
No, it's on pay-per-view.
I thought
it was on the whatever pay-per-view they had all those championship scrambles in because
Jericho you're right. I'm thinking of Edge had an unsanctioned match. That was
against Matt Hardy,
okay. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I guess I just kind of look at it as this match to me was like almost perfect. I love the fact that Jericho and Shawn are just able to go at it, and we get this different version because we're always going to get the same match with these two. It's going to be spectacular. It's going to be technically sound. They're going to throw some high spots in there. The storytelling is going to be phenomenal. But now when you throw an unsanctioned match in there, you have like weapons and you have like a different story to tell, and like who can be more ruthless, who can go to that level that we're not used to seeing either one at.
Right. To me, it was nice to see different things from both of them. Like I've said, that this is the other guy that Shawn's in all of their matches has been able to bring out that aggression that he usually only has against much bigger guys. So I do love that. The match itself, I can't find fault with. If anything, sometimes I find matches like that a little difficult to watch. It's a little uncomfortable, but I think you're supposed to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
So I think that's the story that they're telling.
I think for me the ladder match isn't as great. It's because it's not what I wanted. I didn't want that match. I didn't want Chris Jericho to replace CM Punk and take his title. I wanted CM Punk versus Shawn Michaels.
I was excited because I love Jericho, and other than the feud with Shawn, he hadn't done anything since he'd been back.
No, when CM Punk cashes in the Money in the Bank, I remember that Raw. I remember him beating Edge. I remember freaking out. Like, I was living with Mikey and Sarah at the time. And I remember, like, they were laying down, and I, like, was yelling in my room. Like, I could not believe – I was yelling like a child who had just seen their bicycle on Christmas morning when CM Punk had – I never thought he was going to win. So he beat Edge. And then to find out, like, to just pay attention to as things unfolded and to see, like, CM Punk doesn't even drop the title. Jericho enters the match. Jericho wins the match. He's the new World Heavyweight Champion. Now we get Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. I'm like, no. This felt very much like putting the title on Goldberg for the Brock Lesnar match. That's what this felt like to me.
I guess to me, I compartmentalized them as two different things because Punk had already been knocked out of the match. So once Jericho's added, I wanted him to win.
But I suppose, but I just
didn't want anyone else in the match to win.
Yeah, but look at it though. Like, we had lots of Jericho Shawn Michaels matches. We still to this day don't have a CM Punk Shawn Michaels match. What would that have looked like?
I don't know, because I don't think they had a lot of chemistry.
Exactly. That's 2 times. Well, 3 times where I've been like a match has been stolen from my heart. Eddie versus Shawn, Bryan versus Shawn, Punk versus Shawn. We got none of those.
The reason I do like the ladder match is
the match itself is great. It's just not what I wanted.
A lot like the Benoit ladder match with Jericho. They work it a different way where it's not like a lot of people use a ladder match as just an excuse to do a bunch of spots.
Yes.
Whereas instead they use it as an excuse to just brutalize one another.
You know what's one thing that's never brought up, and I feel like it should be brought up? Chris Jericho. You know how we like label people things like Mick Foley calls himself Mr. In Your House, Mr. WrestleMania. There's a 3-man feud for Mr. SummerSlam, whether it's Lesnar, Rollins, or Bret Hart, whatever. By the end, it's going to be Seth Rollins because he's still going. But however it goes, I feel like Chris Jericho should be Mr. Ladder Match. Can you name me a bad ladder match Chris Jericho's been in?
I don't know that there's a whole lot of bad ladder.
But when he's in a ladder match, but here's the reason I say this. When he's in a ladder match, it's like MJF wrestling today. It's a classic. His match with Benoit, with the spot with the Lion Tamer on the top. The Armageddon match. Yeah, his match with Shawn Michaels, the Armageddon match, right? And then, is it Armageddon or Unforgiven?
It's one of the. It's an In Your House, basically.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
His SmackDown match that he wins with Benoit.
Oh yeah. Forgot about that one. I love that match.
See what I'm saying? When Jericho's in a fucking ladder match, it's insane. It's a classic. Like,
yeah, I mean the SmackDown one. I mean, come on,
that wasn't supposed to be good. That was a televised show. That's crazy.
Okay, but it's a TLC match with 3 original TLC teams plus Jericho and Benoit.
Okay, but you add Jericho and Benoit, you immediately add 2 better wrestlers.
Okay, yeah.
That have nothing to do with that style. And not only did they add, they brought it up to another level. They showed you everything you just complained about. They showed you exactly what like this is what you can do in a ladder match without just beating the shit out of each other with a ladder. And that's why I think it's so great. But we'll talk about Jericho another time.
What did I complain about?
No, I'm just saying, I just said I feel like he should be like Mr. Ladder Match.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, after this feud, we get some weird Shawn Michaels feuds that, lead into his Taker feud. I'll just touch on them quick. We get the Vladimir Kozlov match. We get his weird feud with JBL where he's a broke superstar and he's pretty much the lackey for JBL. I mean, just some.
We actually get another great Chris Jericho ladder match at TLC. Shawn and Triple H versus Jericho versus. I think it was just Shawn and Triple H versus Jericho.
Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, that tells you right there. And for you to have a great match with Big Show on the in a ladder, that's crazy. But yeah, moving on from there, like we obviously have that stuff, but now we're going to talk about the end of his career. And the end of his career kind of all gets muddled because we essentially move in to like we have like a lot of quick stuff. He has like a little spat with the Legacy. He has the feud with Jericho, the tables, ladders, and chairs match. They bring back Bret Hart for us to have that televised like apology, and then their kiss and make up surrounding the Montreal Screwjob. He has where they lose the tag titles to the Miz and the Big Show.
The Miz and the Big Show.
Yeah, the Miz and the Big Show. And, then we get the Elimination Chamber where he has been goading The Undertaker for a match that The Undertaker will not give him. Do you remember why he wouldn't give him this match? What the story was?
He already beat him.
But he didn't beat him at Mania, right?
Yeah, he did. He beat him the year before Mania.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, but I mean,
they have the first match of Mania, which a lot of people say is the greatest Mania match of all time.
Yeah, so we'll start.
Disagree.
Yeah, we'll start there.
It's
so
great.
Obviously we have Shawn versus Taker at WrestleMania 25, and it's fine. I mean, it's great. I personally, I'm not a fan of The Undertaker. I appreciate what he means to the world. I appreciate professional wrestling. To me, I just think Shawn Michaels has better matches, and I don't even consider these top 10 Shawn Michaels matches. My opinion, I just don't. And if I'm being honest, like gun to my head, early Shawn Michaels has better Taker matches than these two. The Bad Blood match was better than both of these two, and so was the one where Shawn Michaels gets hurt at the Royal Rumble. That match is better than both of these two. And he got hurt in that match, guys. He got hurt in that match.
Yeah, I can't argue with either of those things.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this was a lot like Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels, where the story itself was so big. And I know a lot of people, like, I think the reason a lot of people consider these matches like the two best WrestleMania matches ever, why they're like consensus pick for a lot of wrestling fans, is because these are a lot of people, their favorite wrestler ever is The Undertaker, and a lot of people, their favorite wrestler ever is Shawn Michaels. And they might be the top two for a lot of people that grew up in this era, specifically our era. And these are the two guys that they always wanted to see work each other. I don't know. I just, I think Shawn Michaels, he is. Go ahead.
Yeah. I like the 25 match, the story in the 25 match way more than the second one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of religious aspects in the second one, though. Like, I think that turned a lot of people off too. I think there's a lot of people that felt uncomfortable with that. How Shawn was using his like coming down from the heavens and things like that. I remember there being a lot of people uncomfortable with stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I didn't really have a problem with that. I just kind of was like, all right, well, we did this. We don't need to do it again. That's fine.
Yeah, but I think we have to respect the match more so because this was Shawn's choice.
Yeah, sure.
And
that's fine. That's fine. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean,
he went out the way he wanted. That's fine.
Whoa, we have some comments in the chat here. It says from the Dungeon podcast says Shawn Michaels is a jerk. Shawn Michaels is overrated. Well, from the Dungeons. Those are pretty interesting takes. Tyler, do you have any opinion before we wrap up here with the Undertaker stuff?
I mean, so the first part is pretty well documented that, yeah,
that first part is factual. No, 100%.
He was a jerk.
Yeah.
The second part is, I mean, wrestling is subjective. So if that's your opinion, then cool. I can't argue with you. There are people that I think are overrated that people love. So, hey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I would say, as a bigger Bret Hart fan, that Shawn Michaels might be a little overrated.
Here's what I'll say: if you don't like him and he's not your guy, then just don't watch him. Watch what you like.
But
there's so much out there.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's kind of like the Benoit factor. Like when I remember when I was doing like the TikToks of like my top 5 SummerSlam matches ever. I told you last night to go back and watch a match, the 2 out of 3 falls match. That's actually my second favorite SummerSlam match ever. But I didn't put it on my list because a lot of people I feel like would have been upset. But
I'm not worried about people being upset.
What?
I'm not really worried about people being upset.
Well, yes, but I'm trying to build a platform on TikTok, and I don't want to get banned for that. So, but what I will say that I wanted to say when I was like, because I did make a video about that match, and I decided not to post it. What I will say is, whether or not you like or dislike a specific guy, don't forget that that person worked a whole bunch of other people that mean a lot to the business. Like that SummerSlam match that didn't only have Chris Benoit. It also had Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho worked his ass off. And there's a lot of matches that Chris Jericho considers his best matches ever that have to do with Benoit. We can't tell Chris Jericho, yeah, but you wrestled Benoit, so we can't talk about these matches. I mean, Kurt Angle talks about it regularly that his greatest matches ever are with Benoit. He doesn't even care what you think. He's just like, these are my best matches ever.
Right.
So
and that's kind of where I am. And I don't want to upset anyone, obviously. Like I don't want to, but like, and the people who feel the way they feel have a right to feel that way because But as Jericho says that it's one of my best matches ever. It's a shame. It says this in his book repeatedly. It's a shame that it's been buried forever and technically doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's what he said. It's a little tongue-in-cheek shot, I think, at WWE for like you can't erase someone from history. I don't know how we got on this topic, but
yeah,
it happened.
Yeah, it happened. Okay. So I don't know. I guess it was moving on to there. We'll finish up talking about the Undertaker. So the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, they wind up having 2 of the most classic matches in WrestleMania history in back-to-back, and then we wind up finishing up his career. What did you think about these being this being the end of Shawn Michaels' career?
I mean, if that's the way he wanted to go out, then I'm happy for him. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to see him wrestle and he could easily have for 2 or 3 more years.
Yes.
Part-time or whatever he wanted to do. But ultimately, I don't want to see any of these guys out there if they don't want to be there.
Yeah, so I agree with you.
If that's what he wanted, because it's too dangerous a business to go out there if you're not all in.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to touch on, one part of the story that I loved was Taker kept not wanting to do the match.
Yeah. And
he had the title and he's like, all right, there's one way I'll do it if you win the Rumble. And then for a lot of that Rumble, it looks like it's one of my favorite Rumbles, 2010. It looks like Shawn's going to win. It starts out with Punk doing his, straight edge savior gimmick and cutting promos between eliminating people. And then Shawn comes in, and for a long time, it looks like Shawn's going to win. He even eliminates Triple H, I believe.
Yeah.
And then it gets down to, I believe it's like Edge, Cena, Jericho, and Batista or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Edge surprise return. It's one of my favorite Rumbles ever. But I love the story that Shawn had to win that And then when he's eliminated, he's just so dejected because he's lost his chance.
Yeah.
And then to get the match, he also sets up what was a dream match for me. Jericho versus Edge, which didn't end up living up to the hype, but